I'm just going to go out there and say it. There is no city in the world like New York City. Now, I have to say, there are a lot of cities that I love in the United States and in the world, but I don't know. There's just something about New York City. And I always ask myself, could I live in another city? And I think about it, and I want to say my answer is no. Who knows? Maybe that will change years from now, but I'm just so in love with New York City that I'm really biased. And depending on where you're moving from, I want to prepare you for everything that New York City has to offer. You're probably so excited to move to New York City, but at the same time, you might be a little bit nervous about comparing the city that you're coming from to New York City. When a lot of people think of the word city, they think of New York City because there's probably no other city in the world that's quite as city-like as New York City. New York City is in the northeastern part of the United States. And if you look at also other cities that are in the northeastern part of the United States, I'm going to compare two big ones, which is Philadelphia and Boston. If you kind of look at the structure of New York City, they kind of resemble the certain neighborhoods of New York City. Northeastern cities were kind of built in the same way. Now, of course, you cannot compare Philadelphia or Boston to New York City. You definitely can't. I actually love Philadelphia and Boston in very different ways, but New York City is very, very different. They could resemble New York City neighborhoods for sure. I have seen people come to New York City, moving from all different cities around the world. And sometimes they love New York City and absolutely fall in love with it instantly, or they hate it because they keep comparing New York City to the city that they came from. And this may happen to you. One piece of advice that I can give you is take advantage of all the career opportunities that New York City has to offer, because there are a ton. Now, that's one of the biggest reasons people move to New York City is because they dream of having this crazy career. Now, depending on what career you work in, you can have an amazing career in so many different cities and towns across the world, but there's just something about launching or furthering your career in New York City. New York City probably has the most unique food options anywhere in the world. And what do I mean by that? It's like a bold statement. So what I mean by that is that you can find food from literally any ethnicity, country, place in the world in New York City. There's always going to be some type of food that you haven't tried available in New York City. So take advantage of all the food options here. Other cities have wonderful food options as well, but I don't think I've ever seen anything quite as diverse as New York City. And I've tried all different types of food here in New York City just because I can, and that's something that I want to be able to take advantage of when I'm living here. Over 8 million people live in New York City, but there are times when, even though there are 8 million people here, you can feel so completely alone here. And with over 8 million people living here, you would think that it would be so easy to make friends here. But this is something that I see a lot of people struggling with here. Why is that? I think it's because there are so many people here, and people here in New York City sometimes aren't here for the long term because they're here for a certain time in their career or a certain point in their life where they want to be here. And it's a very transit city. Sometimes people don't get close to other people in New York City because they might not be here for long. So this is something that I see a lot of people struggling with here. And what can you do about this? I want you to put yourself out there. One of your first priorities should be to meet people here in New York City that are also living in New York City, because it's going to make or break your experience if you have a good friend group here. It really will. And as a real estate agent, I see so many people leaving New York City, honestly, because they don't have the friends and family here, and they never really put themselves out there to find those friends. And because of that, they just don't feel at home in New York City. And I don't really blame them. Who would want to be in a place where they feel so alone? One thing that people struggle with in New York City compared to other places in the world is work-life balance. Your career is everything in New York City. It's a top conversation topic. And because of that, you might feel that everything is about work here, and that your whole life, your whole day, every single day is just about work, and you can feel like you are working yourself to death. I want you to be careful with that, because if your life is all about work here, you might not actually be enjoying all the things that New York City has to offer, and then you kind of might resent New York City. I do also see this all the time. I don't want you to resent New York City. I want you to love New York City and experience everything New York City has to offer. Try to find that work-life balance. This is something that I still, honestly, I struggle with this all the time. I think I always will struggle with this in a way, but I definitely have gone through periods of time where I've gotten better about this and have managed to find some type of work-life balance. On the opposite side, I've also seen people get sucked into the social scene here so much where they actually neglect their work and their career because they're always about partying, drinking, going out, and just having a good time here. So I've seen that as well. And I do have to say that is something that at a certain point in my life, I have gotten into as well, because it's so hard not to. If you're coming from a city where there's not a lot of places to go out, it's not a huge nightlife scene, when you come to New York City, you feel like you are in heaven because there's just so much here. There's something for everybody. So it can be really easy to get sucked into that and just get overwhelmed with all those options. So I want you to be careful of that as well. A lot of times when I see people moving to New York City from other cities, they either completely love New York City or they just don't. They end up hating it. And I don't see a lot of people fall in the middle. So I want you to be prepared for this. How do you avoid hating New York City? Like I said, put yourself out there, take advantage of all the career opportunities. Or if you're the type of person who wants to be there for the social scene and the culture scene, go out and go to museums, try new foods, do all those things that you want to do. Think about what will make your experience the best for you. Are you here for the going out scene? Are you here to embrace yourself in the culture? Think about what's in it for you, what's going to matter to you. That's how I want you to approach New York City. And no one can say if you're going to completely love it or hate it. I do always advise advise that if you can, try to visit New York City as much as possible. Try to visit the neighborhood that you're potentially going to live in, because I do think that that's going to make your experience a lot better. And prepare yourself that you might not have the experience that people have in the movies or in TV shows. This perfect apartment and this perfect life, nothing's perfect. It's not going to be like that when you get here, but it can still be amazing. And I have to say, it is amazing, especially if you take advantage of all the things that I was telling you about in this video. So I would love to know, are you moving to New York City from another city, or have you lived in another city besides New York City? And what was your experience like? As always, I just love hearing from you guys.